There is a tension at the heart of the Saw series. John frequently proclaims that he wants people to value their lives.
Congratulations, you are still alive. Most people are so ungrateful to be alive.
In defense of his actions, he continually insists that he is not a murderer.
Someone like me, who am
A monster. A murderer.
I don't condone murder, and I despise murderers.
However, as is the case here, other characters frequently remind us that John's defense is dubious.
I've never murdered anyone in my life. The decisions are up to them.
Yeah, well, putting a gun to someone's head and forcing them to pull the trigger is still murder.
John's claims about what he does need some consideration. His calm, measured tone might suggest that his statements are precise, but his actions frequently contradict his words. Take, for example, his instructions to Amanda about how to survive her trap.
There is only one key to open the device. It's in the stomach of your dead cellmate. Look around, Amanda. Know that I'm not lying.
Despite directly saying that he isn't lying, he says that the cellmate is dead when he clearly isn't.
He's been injected with an opiate overdose. Couldn't move or feel much of anything.
You mean he was alive?
Was.
His instructions are also sometimes contradictory. So, for example, in Saw 4, John instructs Rig that he must
Force him into position to face his demons. And let him make the decision.
But forcing someone into position doesn't seem compatible with letting them decide their fate, especially since after 60 seconds the choice will be made for Ivan anyway.
Decide quickly, though. In 60 seconds, the choice will be made for you.
John also frequently criticises people for not valuing life, yet his actions seem to undermine those very values. Many of his victims are just mere pawns in his game. For instance, in Rig's game, Rig isn't given instructions on how to save Brenda.
Officer Rig, your first test. The person in front of you is in desperate need of help, but it is not your job to save them. You view this person as a victim, but if you were to see what I see, beneath the mask lies a criminal undeserving of the life she leads. Your obsession tells you to save the victim. I tell you to walk away. The choice is yours.
In fact, the test's aim is that Rig shouldn't save her, meaning she is meant to die. These inconsistencies might seem like hypocrisy, but the series' morality isn't as confused as some critics have suggested. The key to understanding why lies in the series' most important scene. After a tragic event in which John and Jill's unborn son is miscarried, John tries to kill himself, intentionally crashing his car.
I had literally driven myself to suicide, and I had failed. My body had not been strong enough to repel cancer cells, yet I had lived through a plunge off a cliff. To my amazement, I was alive, and I was determined to spend the rest of my days testing the fabric of human nature.
His suicide attempt underlines that John was guilty of not valuing his own life, and, according to John,
those who don't appreciate life do not deserve life.
Following the failed suicide attempt, John starts to kill other people, and those murders are an expression of John's own self-punishment and guilt. The importance of this scene is underlined by John's declaration that
the cancer isn't what started me in my work. It was the moment I decided to end my life that started me in my work and brought meaning to it.
It also explains something vitally important about the series. The incident leads John to form a rigid set of values that are out of line with the world as he perceives it. In order to resolve that disparity, John has 4 options. First, change his values. Second, change the world so it aligns with his values. Third, destroy the world entirely, leaving just him and his values. Or fourth, destroy himself. The target of John's campaign might appear to be other people because other people are tested in gruesome and graphic ways throughout the series. However, John's real target is himself. John is at the centre of his own destructive campaign. His victims are selected because they are involved in his personal history. So even though John directly declares that
The heart cannot be involved. Emotionally, there can be nothing there. It can never be personal.
a news report in Saw 6 warns that
Victims have included anyone associated with the life of John Kramer, however remote.
in fact, John systematically punishes every person that led to his suicide, including the drug addict responsible for his unborn son's death,
It's you! You did this to me.
No. You did this to yourself.
the oncologist who failed to cure him,
Patient has an inoperable frontal lobe tumor extending across the midline, which started as colon cancer.
and the health insurer that prevented him from seeking experimental treatment.
At your age, and with the development of your cancer, it's simply not feasible.
John also selects Bobby in Saw the Final Chapter and Pamela in Saw 6 because they appropriate his message in different ways.
You have amassed wealth, fame, and notoriety based upon your story of survival. Many have aided in your cause, but few know the truth. You are a liar. Hello, Pamela. You've sensationalized my life, twisting the truth and exploiting my message for your own benefit.
So none of these targets are clearly selected because they fail to value their own lives. Rather, they're selected because they personally affront John and damage his attempts to create a legacy.
The cure for death itself. The answer is immortality. By creating a legacy, by living a life worth remembering, you become immortal.
However, John's targets aren't only people who have wronged him personally. They're also mirrors that reflect his own obsessive traits. John's goal isn't just to punish people for doing wrong or not living up to his values, but to erase problematic aspects of himself that he sees reflected in them. For example, William is a health insurance executive, and in an early scene in Saw 6, we see William refuse coverage to one of his clients. Harold responds by declaring,
You know what? You're a criminal. You are a goddamn criminal. I paid my monthly premium for 10 years without so much as a cold. And now that I'm actually sick, you're gonna deny my coverage? I have a family!
Those are the rules, Harold.
I'm sorry, but your own actions have caused this.
William's response, referring to rules and consequences, matters because it clearly echoes John's repeated dialogue across the series.
The rules of the game are simple. Consequences for breaking them are great. Death.
Furthermore, when William and John first meet, this is before John becomes Jigsaw, William notes that they are similar.
Sounds like we're in a similar business, John.
Oh, you have that.
Well, you try to predict people's behavior, so do I. When people come to us for coverage, we have to analyze each person for the probability of success.
So in a sense, you choose who lives or dies. Until a person is faced with death, it's impossible to tell whether they have what it takes to survive.
Although John tries to deny their similarity, it only underscores how apt the comparison is. William isn't targeted because he doesn't value his own life. He's targeted because his attitude illuminates the callousness and egoism of John's method. Saw 4's Rig is comparable to John in a contrasting way. John critiques Rig's obsession with saving others, asking him to let people save themselves. But that seems to be exactly what John is doing with his coercive salvation method. The test, training, rig to see what John sees and save as John saves suggests there's a difference between their perspectives. But that supposed contrast is a distraction, diverting attention from their intrinsic similarities. Rig already sees as John sees because he embodies John's own obsession with others. This pattern continues. John criticises others for traits he himself exhibits. Kerry's obsession with her work.
Up until now, you have spent your life among the dead, piecing together their final moments. You're good at this because you, like them, are also dead. Dead on the inside.
Eric's willingness to take the law into his own hands.
Eric.
Hoffman's arrogance and desire to exert control over others.
You feel you now have control, don't you? You think you will walk away untested.
Each victim embodies an aspect of John's own persona that he rejects and seeks to erase. In short, John is the problem, and his solution is to symbolically erase that problem. In this light, it becomes clearer why the games involve coerced suicide rather than murder. John projects his self-destructive desires onto his victims, effectively killing himself through them. This is underscored by the recurring suicide motifs throughout the series. John's victims choose whether to live or die, meaning that,
technically speaking, he's not really a murderer. He never killed anyone. He finds ways for his victims to kill themselves.
one of the first victims we hear about in the series is Paul, who's specifically selected because he attempts suicide.
Hello, Paul. You are a perfectly healthy, sane, middle-class male. Yet last month, you ran a straight razor across your wrist.
Even John's proposed cancer treatment evokes the same motif.
This is a doctor in Norway. He's got a 30 to 40% success rate with gene therapy. He injects what he calls suicide genes into cancerous tumor cells.
Given this running theme, it's no surprise that the series' very first shot of John shows him lying on the bathroom floor as if he has recently shot himself in the head. This understanding of John's motivation is key to resolving his apparent hypocrisy and the series' underlying tension. And that's why this is the Saw series' most important scene.
I had literally driven myself to suicide.